The fourth section, as mentioned, is the tribulation, or the Great Tribulation. We'll get a little more into a description of the events of the tribulation, but the first thing we're going to go through is the man of sin. The man of sin is key to when I believe the tribulation will begin. And here we go into Daniel, the Old Testament, and Daniel 7 from 23 to 25. And it says, "And he said, the fourth wild beast will be a fourth kingdom on the earth, which shall excel all the kingdoms, and shall devour all the earth, and shall trample upon it," sounds tribulation, "and cut it in pieces. And the 10 horns of his are 10 kings." Now the beasts are mentioned in the book of Revelation, and they're tied in. The great beast is Satan. "And the 10 horns of his are 10 kings, and they shall rise up. And after them shall rise up another, who shall overwhelm all the ones prior. And 3 kings he shall humble. And the words against the highest he shall speak." And that would be God. "And the holy ones of the highest he shall mislead." Now, who are the holy ones of the highest? Or that's the believers or Jews. It doesn't really say, but the holy ones in the Old Testament would be Jews, because he didn't know who the Christians are, and I doubt if they're using that. They possibly might in a prophecy here, but if it was the Jews, it was going to mislead them, which I believe the man of sin does. "And he shall be of opinion to change times and law." Now, what times and law? Well, the ones that have been taught to the Jews are the times that were set up by God in Leviticus with Moses, and the law in the Exodus, Leviticus, Numbers, and Deuteronomy. He's going to change them all. Now, they have been changed anyway over the years through the oral law after the conquest of Babylon, and by the time Jesus came along, the oral law was almost more important than what was in the Bible, the Torah, the first 5 books, the 4 books of the law of the 5. And it continues, "And it shall be granted in his hand until a time and times and half a time." Now, here we have a time as 1, and then 2, and that makes 3.5. That's very important. We'll see that later when we get into the actual tribulation and the time of the tribulation. So now we have this man who has come in, and he is changing things, times and laws, and speaks against the Holy One. Our next section is the man of sin that's in 2 Thessalonians 2:3. And it mentions here, Paul says, "Let not any completely deceive you in one manner, for unless the defection should come first," which we already went through, "and the man of sin should be uncovered." So now the defection has to come, and I believe we're the defection, so the man of sin could very well come, but I have the Gog and Magog war before that, so that it would set up his arrival. And it's called the son of destruction, the one being an adversary and elevating himself above all, being called God, or object of worship. And now the next part we'll go into here. And so he's setting himself up. Now, his name, he was the son of destruction. Well, we see in Revelation 9:11, it says, "They have a king over them, the angel of the abyss." And I believe these are the locusts. And his name in Hebrew is Abaddon. But in the Elleniki, the Greek, he has the name Apollyon, and that means the one destroying. I could have translated this and used that he has the name the one destroying, and instead of using a transliteration of Apollyon, maybe I should have, and then it would have been number 622 because it's part of the verb to destroy. But I didn't, and so excuse me, forgive me for that overlook. And now we have this man, he's a destroyer. He's coming, setting himself up. The next thing that would happen is the holy city in the temple. And it says, and in 11:1 of Revelation, and was given to me a reed measure like unto a rod. And the angel stood, saying, Arise and measure the temple of God and the altar and the ones doing obeisance in it. So now there's a temple of God it's talking about in the book of Revelation. And now you could think, well, this could be the temple at the time of the 1,000 years or the Ezekiel's temple. Well, it could be, except it continues and it says, and the altar and the ones doing obeisance, and right here, put out, and the outer courtyard of the temple put out, and you should not measure it, for it was given to the nations. I don't see that as the one that's mentioned, temple that's mentioned in Ezekiel in the last 10 chapters, and nor the 1,000-year reign. I believe that this could possibly be the Dome of the Rock Mosque. It's changed into a temple, and the part of the area is still given to the nations, whoever the Muslims, Christians are at that time. There may not even be any Christians. We'll get into a little bit of the time where this all is going to happen a little bit more here as we go down. So now the temple, the man of God, the temple set up. Now what happens next is in 2 Thessalonians 2:4, and it says, he's the son of destruction, the one being an adversary and elevating himself above all, being called God, our object of worship. For as for him to sit in the temple of God as God, exhibiting himself that he is God. So this all fits. So now we've got this temple built, and now this man, he's a destroyer. He comes and he proclaims himself as God. And here we go into more of a description of this being, if you would. In Revelations 13:1-10. And it says, And I stood upon the sand of the sea, John, and I saw from out of the sea a wild beast ascending, having 10 horns and 7 heads, and we went through that in Daniel, and upon his horns 10 diadems, and upon his heads a name of blasphemy. And the wild beast which I saw was like unto a leopard, and his feet as a bear, and his mouth as the mouth of a lion, and the dragon gave to him his power. So this could be the man of sin. The dragon, being Satan, gives him the power. And his throne, which he sets up in the temple, and great authority. And one from out of his heads was as having been slain to death, and the wound of his death was cured. So we see that this man is attacked and wounded but cured. And there was wonder in all the earth after the wild beast. And they did obeisance to the dragon, giving the authority to the wild beast. So somehow they're going to know the dragon has sent this man of sin. We'll find out. And they do obeisance. They did obeisance to the wild beast, saying, they did obeisance to both, who is likened to the wild beast, and that would be the man of sin, I believe here, and who is mighty to wage war with him. And a mouth was given to him, speaking great things and blasphemy, like it said in Daniel. And authority was given to him to make war for 42 months. Now, 42 months is 3.5 years. 12 is 24, 36, 36, and 6 more, 7, 33, 42. And he opened his mouth for blasphemy against God, to blaspheme his name, and that's important, this time zone. We'll go into that, as I mentioned. And blasphemed his name in his tent and the ones encamping in the heaven, and was given to him to make war with the holy ones and to overcome them. Which holy ones? Again, this is the holy ones, remember, back in Daniel, we thought those were the Jews, and they could still be Jews. The Christians may have been taken. We're going to get into that in our next video, called the assemblage. And he's to overcome them, and was given to him authority over every tribe and language and nation. And they did obeisance to him, all the ones dwelling upon the earth, whose name has not been written in the book of life of the Lamb, having been slain from the founding of the world. If anyone has an ear, hear. If anyone has captivity, into captivity he goes. If anyone kills with a sword, it is a must for him to be killed by a sword. So now, at that time, trying to defend yourself, maybe that's not what they're to do. They're to just lose their life. Here is the endurance and the belief of the holy ones, and it could be just basically the Jews and whoever has listened and heard and has changed from disbelieving to believing the things of God that are going on. And so now that was the description of this beast. And now, who is this beast? Well, it's interesting. We can go into Revelation 13:18, and it says, the one having the mind tally the number of the wild beast. Now, having the mind, the thinking about it, tally, psiphisato. A Cephos is a little pebble. Cephos was Peter's nickname, Cephos. And they use these pebbles to cast lots. The Psiphisato is to tally these lots, to tally a vote, mainly. The King James, it has to count, and it's not count at all. Count is arithmeo. We get the word arithmetic. That's to count. But here it's to tally, count up the vote, the number of the wild beast. I was in Brazil for a month, and when I arrived there, it was election time for their president or whatever he's called. And instead of the man having pictures and his name plastered, like here we would have, all the names of the people running for president in the past and so forth, in the picture, and you know who they are, and you vote for them. There, they had pieces of paper, and it had numbers on it, 1492, 6133. And they had these pieces of paper by the billions, and they were casting them all out all over the streets, all these papers with numbers on them. And so people would vote by the number. They wouldn't vote by the person's name, although they knew who the person was that they wanted to vote for, Al Smith or whatever his name was, number 411. Then they would go in and they go 411 and vote for 411, which would be Al Smith. And so here, it's a number of a man, and his number, and it's not 666. Don't go shaving somebody's head, and like that was in the movie The Omen, and seeing 666, you won't find it. You're gonna find a psoriasis or something, or dandruff. But it's these three letters in the Greek. The X, which looks like the letter which looks like an X, is called a he, and not chi, but he in Greek, and that's for 600. Greek is similar to the Roman numeral systems, where you have I is 1, and V is 5, and X is 10, L is 50, and C is 100, M is 1,000, and Greek has the same thing with all the letters of the alphabet. You go from Vita, Gamma, Delta, Epsilon, Zeta, Eta, Theta. They all have numerical equivalents, and these do too. And it's He, and then the next one is Xi, and that's 60. And the third one is called a stigma. And it looks like the final S, but it's actually, numerically, it's a stigma, and that's number 6, but it doesn't appear in the list of the alphabet. So it's interesting. So I believe how you're going to do this. I have a book behind me with all the numbers of people. Let me find it here, and I'll show it to you. Now, here's the book. Reading the Past, Mathematics and Measurements. And so you go in here, and here's a list right here. I don't know how well it'll come up on the there. You can see it on the top of the page, and it is a numerical equivalent. And so if you find a person's name, now does it have to be in Greek? I don't know, but I if it's a similar letter to the Greek, then I would suppose it would count. So whenever I see somebody's name that I think, well, could that be the beast? Then I would look his name, and if his name has equivalent letters that the Greek would have, like an alpha is 1, Vita is 2, Gamma 3, Delta 4, Epsilon 5, Stigma 6, Eta 7, Zeta, 7, Eta 8, Theta 9, and Iota 10, 20 is Kappa, 30 is Lambda, 40 is Mi, 50 is Ni, 60 is Xi, which here we have, 70 is Omega, Omicron, 80 is Pi or P, 90 is another weird Greek letter. Looks like an O with a cross under it, and then 100 is Re or R, and 200 is Sigma, 300 is Tav, 400 Epsilon, 500 Phi, 600 He, which we have here, 700 Psi, 800 Omega, and 900 is a Sampi, which is another weird letter. So I go and find these names, and I write the number, and then I total them up. And I have not run across a totaling. It would total 666, because it says tally the number of the wild beast, and his number is 666. So 666. So the King James made it 666, which made this into the movie. Took the 666 literally. So the King James should have just kept it as translated maybe into 600, S-I-X-H-U-N-D-R-E-D, S-I-X-T-Y, S-I-X. Might have been closer to what it should have been. So now this is the man who is going to come, the man of sin, the destroyer, sets himself up as God. And our next section is the assemblage, and that's really important for us to understand, and we'll go into that next.